All right, nice little intro there. So, welcome to the Wellbeing Podcast. This is your co-host Scott Frost with over here, and we'd like to start off today with a little bit of a different tone, a little bit of music, kind of intro it in. Today we're going to be talking about what we call the human hobbies. So we're starting up a three-part series, and we're going to be talking about those things that what once went from being. There's a cool little tongue twister. Just givens of being a human that were things were set for us by our environment and by our biology, to then needing to become a habit to be healthy, and now habits actually have to be hobbies if you're going to actually live a healthy and well life. So last week we just wanted to review a little bit of what we kind of covered a little bit in our first part on sleep. We had some audio problems, so we apologize for that, but we're hoping that Sumer's new mic and some of our other little ads will make a difference this week. So last week we covered a little bit about just how technology impacts us in many different ways, but one of the ways is that every piece of technology that we add seems to take away part of our humanness. And in taking away part of our humanness, it means that we then have to develop habits that actually now we have to invest to the point of hobbies, as we just said, to be able to counteract some of those things. So one of those first, amongst other things, we really wanted to start with sleep. I think sleep is a huge topic that's sort of avoided because you're told to sleep more, but no one really ever talks about how to sleep better or why we aren't sleeping well, or even admitting that it's being taken from us. So we're going to talk a little bit today about sleep. Any thoughts, Samir?
Yeah, I think that it's kind of interesting the way sleep is presented. Because in one light, it's like sleep is the cousin of death. Work your ass off. It's like almost like it's what makes up the American culture. In most cultures in Europe or places like that, they value siesta, they value rest to increase productivity. I think if Japan or China, they're starting to instill or make mandatory rest time, mandatory sleep time to increase productivity. So there's that aspect of it. And then you have the health field saying sleep more, get at least 8 hours of sleep a night. But what does that even mean? And so people get attached to these numbers rather than focusing on quality, the things they can do to increase the quality of their sleep. So I think that's important. What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, my whole life philosophy is quality first, right? Quality over quantity. Quality and then volume of quality. But and I think the only people who are talking about sleep quality are really this whole kind of movement of I guess they call themselves biohackers, people who are really trying to exponentially increase their productivity. But where they talk about sleep quality, I think a lot of these sort of parts of this community want to decrease the amount of hours that they're sleeping by increasing the quality. And I think this also sort of sells you short on really what the point is. The point isn't to sleep 4 hours of amazing sleep and try and replace 6. The point is increase the quality of your sleep, and let's actually sleep the way we used to sleep without effort. You told me a statistic, I think, about that back in the early 1900s, that it was, what'd you say it was?
With the percentage of people sleeping?
Yeah, or just how many hours? You said it was like 9 hours?
Oh, yeah. People back in the 1900s, they would sleep at least like 9, 10 hours a night. And sometimes what they would do, they would sleep like, I think it was like 7 to 8 hours. Then they would wake up, kind of like relax, decompress, like kind of do a little light reading, go back to bed for another 2 hours, and then wake up. Kind of an interesting interesting way to go about the resting process.
And where are we at now? Isn't it 1 out of every 3 people, 33%?
33% of the American population gets less than 6.5 hours of sleep a night, which is nuts.
That is. That's not only nuts, but it's bordering on criminal.
Yeah, and I think it was women get more sleep than men overall.
But how much? I mean, that's really minutes on end, right?
It's minutes on end.
Yeah,
but it's still marked crazy difference from the 1900s to now.
Right, and I think the thing that's missing from even that statistic is the evaluation of quality. In the early 1900s, you had less technology, you had less light exposure, and because of that, the entire way of life was less, what I would say, overlighted. So there was a much different effect on the melatonin, on the hormones of sleep. Because when humans are left to their own devices, some of the famous sleep research was actually done by, I can't think of the guy's name right off the top of my head, but when I was taking the neurobiology of sleep back at the University of Pennsylvania in my undergrad, we talked about how one of the very first sleep researchers who really discovered circadian rhythms took himself out into a cave and would deprive himself of all light and would live for months on end in a cave and see what happened when you deprive the human body of all external environmental signals, what that natural biological ebb and flow and rhythm would set itself at. And it actually turned out to be less than 24 hours. It was like 23.8, something like that. But it was essentially that by the time his 3 months were up, he was completely off cycle of sunlight and the day-night cycle. So we have to have this entire hormonal cascade that must exist to help kind of recalibrate our natural cellular cycles with the Earth, with the day-nights and the 24-hour system. And I think back in the early 1900s, the light exposure that was it was not very highly densely white light. It definitely had none of the saturated blue lights that we see in our LEDs, our computers, our phones, our TVs. Now, conventionally in our lighting, generally in the light bulbs that we create are very intense in blue light because that's what illuminates the room. And blue light is what suppresses melatonin. And melatonin is a hormone released by the pineal gland in the brain that is what syncs up this relaxation signal to go to sleep so that you actually stay in the same rhythms. So it's safe to say that they were getting more sleep, but they were getting more sleep and higher quality sleep. So it's probably like a twofold punch in the gut that we're just cutting ourselves way off. So how do you think we can look at all the great things that technology has brought to us, but still make it work as a human and stay human, sleep like a human, recover like a human, and not be some lab rat?
Yeah, I think good question. I think technology is intended to make our lives easier, and in a big way it has. But at the same time, at the expense of what? At the expense of your health, at the expense of your well-being. That's something that I can't give up, can't sacrifice. I can't put up my well-being for sense of quote-unquote productivity, which is kind of a false thing. I'm not going to really be productive if I'm tired all the time. I can't do what I need to do. So I know they have apps. They have a bunch of applications now. Like they have an app called Flux, F.LUX.
Yeah, I have that one on my computer.
Yeah, and it's really cool. It's as the day goes by and as we're getting closer to the evening, it starts to dim the light in the phone, right? It starts to turn on the blue light that comes off in the phone. I think it's freaking cool. I mean, that's an awesome app in itself. They have apps that act as really cool alarm systems. So, like, when you have those blaring alarms that stress you to F out, when you wake up in the morning, like, oh shit, I have to go to work. these gradually wake you up. You start with kind of like a light sound, and they gradually elevate into a louder and louder sound. It's like birds chirping, the water flowing. That is a much better way to wake up from sleep. The last thing you want is you're in deep sleep, and all of a sudden you just get thrown out of bed, and you're like, holy crap, you're in this whirlwind, you don't know what to do. That's the worst time to get out of sleep is when you're in that deep cycle. You're gonna feel groggy, you're gonna feel just all over the place. So there are a wealth of things you can do with tech to almost hack your sleep. Just with the knowledge of knowing that, during the day, expose yourself to as much light as possible. But then as you get towards the nighttime, start to lower your exposure to light. Yeah. And there's, you probably know more apps than I do, but go ahead.
I actually think it's kind of funny that we call it biohacking, and we say that there's all this technology that can help us be better at sleeping, better at being humans, but really it's technology hacking technology. We're really using technology to reverse the technology that we introduced into our lives.
Yeah.
So I look at getting someone back to baseline as, all right, let's take care of all the things that have been taken from you first. And I think that, the natural rhythm of a 24-hour clock being dictated on the rising and setting of the sun, and how that really entrains the rhythm and the routine of sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, and up and down, and stress, good stress, and then being able to pull out, has really been changed by the fact that we can totally manipulate our environment to be whatever we want.
Yeah.
But that's whatever we think we want, and not really what our body desires. So how do we circumvent our own invention of light technology? I think we have to use our technology when it appropriately matches up with the rhythms we're supposed to be in. Expose yourself to, do all your computer work in the day, in the morning. Make sure that you're using all that light exposure. Cut off the TV. This is something maybe we'll talk about in the second edition on sleep, is really the inability to be quiet with yourself, and where that sort of comes from, and how that's leading you toward using the TV to veg instead of using yourself to be with yourself and to shut down.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of get into that, but the TV is, I think the cell phone is even more insidious now than the TV. I think people are shifting from the TV to the cell phone, and are checking their phone as they're going to bed. And I mean, even it's a catch-22 with me, because I do use a number of apps, and some people know this, a lot of people don't, but I was a severe insomnia, and still suffer with it to this day. Back in, oh my gosh, as far as I can remember through middle school, I would say by the time I was in 5th grade, I was staying up till past 12, past 1. By probably 4th, 5th. By 6th, 7th, I was up till 2 a.m. Pretty much every night. I mean, by the time I got out of high school, I was up till between 2 and 4 a.m. every night. Was just crashing through the day. I just couldn't sleep. I had horrible, horrible insomnia. And so sleep is something that's intrigued me for a long time. So it's just neurologic dysfunction. So hence my obsession with the nervous system, and my years and years of study through neuroscience, and then into grad school as well.
What do you think the reason is why you had all that insomnia? Do you think it was congenital? Do you think it was a variety of factors? How your lifestyle was at the time? Like, what was the reason why?
I actually think it's just a storm of factors, which we can start to definitely unpeel.
Yeah.
But